PAC. We do not endorse candidates or contribute to their campaign. We invite candidates to talk about issues and legislation. If you want to contribute to candidates, we encourage you to go to their websites. The meeting is being recorded by Colton Hahn and...
Yay, Colton!
Yay, Colton! And thank you, Colton. And that enables us to have a YouTube. If people don't come, they can get on the Fidalgo Democrats YouTube. Our next meeting is next month, Tuesday, August 12th, and we'll send out an email with the details. Next, I am now going to turn the meeting over to Shay, who is going to be our moderator, and she, I'll quickly say she's a retired cardiologist, a former school board member, and a former state legislator. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me at the back?
Yeah.
Okay, as soon as you can't hear me, raise your hand. Okay? What I'd like to do is just sort of lay out the format for what we're doing tonight, why we're doing it, and how we're doing it. This is a remarkable turnout, and we appreciate everyone in this wonderful small town who takes such an interest in local government. Local politics is real politics, and it always has been. Probably never more true today than today, as things change in our state and federal government. First, I'd like to thank all of you for coming and paying attention. Really like to thank the candidates. It takes a lot of courage to stand up and run. You become very vulnerable, and some questions will be a little bit intrusive tonight, perhaps. So I want to thank them all for taking the risk of doing this on behalf of the public. I want to thank the Fidalgo Democrats for doing something very important for this town. Monthly educational meetings on topics of great interest to people who live here. Before we go further, I would like to give everyone who's present and elected a chance to stand up and be acknowledged. So if you're elected, would you stand up and say hello? Back there. Thank you. Now, we've also got some candidates who are not part of tonight's candidate forum. There will be another candidate forum in the coming months, and they'll have an opportunity to get grilled at that time. But as most of you probably know, Washington has what's called a top 2 primary. If more than 2 candidates file to run for the same office, so 3 or more, they run in a primary election. The only race in our town this year that's facing a primary election is the one that these 3 gracious candidates are here for Commissioner District 1. So tonight's questions, our attention is on them, but would any other candidate who's here like to simply stand and introduce themselves by name and what they're running for, and then please sit down. Please.
So I'm Bob Papadakis, and I'm running for 4th District 2 Commission.
Thank you, Bob.
Thanks for having me.
With Bob.
Luke Courier, City Council, position 4.
Thank you.
Carolyn Moulton, running for re-election to Anacortes City Council, position 6.
Hi everybody, Teresa De La Rosa. I too am running for City Council, position 4. Thank you.
Great. Anybody else? All right. Oh.
Hi everybody, Ryan Walters. I am running unopposed for Mayor of Anacortes.
Congratulations, and sit down. Candidates, the microphones are funky. So you have to really keep them fairly close to your face. I know post-COVID, we really don't like to do that, but otherwise you won't be heard. And really, please, I want to encourage the audience, if we drop off and you can't hear us, let us know, because you didn't come here to get frustrated. The format tonight is that we will begin with each candidate making an opening statement. The candidates chose numbered cards that they were blinded to determine the initial order of speaking. And as we go through the questions, the order of speaking will rotate. It's impossible to give every candidate exactly the same speaking time, but we'll do our very best. We have a series of questions to ask, and the candidates will get anywhere from 1 to 5 minutes to answer, depending upon the complexity of the question. And at my discretion, there will be follow-up questions to further clarify any answers that we have received. We'll also be taking questions from the audience, and someone, Vanna White, where are you, Vanna? Will be passing out paper and pen, and you're very welcome to submit questions to us in writing. We've got a little screening committee. We'd like to avoid duplicate questions and make sure that we ask things that people really need the answers to. We do have a timer, and we will respectfully ask that the candidates restrict their speaking time to that which is allowed. Would you like to demonstrate the timer? Okay. At about 60 minutes in, I think we'll all need a break. And so we'll take one and then we'll continue with questions for as long as there's interest. And in the end, the candidates will have 2 minutes to make a closing statement. I think that about covers the format, okay? So with that, the way the numbers were chosen, Mary LaFleur will be making her introductory remarks first, followed by Terry, and then followed by Michael. You have a microphone right there.
Oops.
And I'll ask you to stay right
Oh,
over
okay.
there. Not that I'm a control freak or anything.
Sit down and see everybody. Okay, here we go, 3 minutes. Thank you, Fidalgo Democrats, for putting this forum on, and the commission and staff that are here, and the electeds. What are my qualifications? My life and 40-year career have revolved around being a marine specialist in the insurance industry. I have a lot of connections. I am a 37-year tenant in the Capsani Marina. I understand the history and what has and has not worked in the marina. I know the folks in the marina, both recreational and commercial. I've served on the MAC, the Marina Advisory Committee, for 10 years, and in addition, I have attended many port and meetings and retreats. I have served for 13 years in the local marine trades, our 72 businesses that work and thrive here. Without them, the port would not be as big a success. I am a 15-year member of NMTA, the Northwest Marine Trades Association. While serving as Chamber of Commerce Chairman in 2017, I leveraged my relationship with NMTA to bring the Anacortes Boat and Yacht Show to town. It has been a great success for our community and the folks like ACB, Marine Tech College, Skagit Search and Rescue, who we have donated the average of $40,000 a year. This helps our children and our community. I have been a commercial landlord and worked well with tenants. Why am I running? I'm concerned that the north end of the marina is about aged out, built in '86, and there is no money set aside and no plan. This is over a $70 million project. Over half the port's income comes from this asset. We need a plan and we need to start now. I'm concerned that our deep water terminal is not functioning at what is considered full capacity, 70%. Today I received my public request. The average over 9 years, Curtis Wharf is 44%, Pier 1 is 14, Pier 2 is 29. We can do better without adding costly infrastructure. In my line of work, if I want more money, I need more customers. I plan to bring much high level of transparency to you. I will hold monthly meetings so that I can hear your concerns and you can contribute. I plan to leverage my knowledge, relationships, communication skills, and negotiation skills to help the port. I am concerned that we do not stay in our lane and stick to our mission statement. During my 10 years on the MAC, the port has hired lots of consultants and architects to formulate plans that go nowhere at a huge expense. The people should be asked first before we move forward with their money. I believe the chain of command starts with you, then the elected officials and staff. We are not above you. I believe if you come to the table with a complaint, you bring the solution. I will do that. I get things done. If you hear rumors of what I'm thinking or doing, cut out the middleman. Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Terry Carroll-Gillis, and I'm very grateful for I'm grateful to the Democrat. That might be my needs. I would just like to thank the Fidalgo Democrats for providing this forum. I think it's so important, as well as all the candidates that are here today and elected officials. It's very honored. I'm honored to be here amongst all of you tonight. I'm a 45-year Navy veteran, senior enlisted leader, leading and advocating for sailors and families throughout my career. While some of that was reserve time because I was broken service. I did a stint as a budget and financial analyst, managing a $43 million budget, research and development, and you cannot exceed that budget with those particular funds. So I had to manage a lot of the projects that went with them as well. I also served as the Oregon State Employment Field Office. I was the manager of the field office there with the Oregon Employment Department. Sorry, I'm getting nervous here. And we did a whole business model change, and so there was a lot of strategic planning involved with that. And to do that, that meant I had to bring all the stakeholders to the table, of course, the businesses, the employers, the schools, as well as the job seeker, and of course my staff. It was really important that they were there and were part of that planning and had input. I sat on the Workforce and Economic Development Boards while I was with the Oregon Employment Department. I currently sit on a very large HOA board. Any of you know Skyline, it's very large. And I'm the president currently of that board. That ends in July, which now gives me time to do something more for my community. I value integrity, transparency, which I also equate to honesty, as well as kindness. I'm running for Port Commissioner because I believe in forward-thinking leadership that is collaborative. Supporting the port's mission is utmost. I also want to give back to the community. I'm very passionate about serving. This is my first opportunity to really be involved with the community. I've moved around so much over the 45 years. And so I'm very passionate about that and excited. I'll focus on growth, commerce, trade, tourism, family wage jobs, and public use. Ensuring the health of the port for the future, ensuring that those goals for ecological projects that we have, environmental projects, are still considered and that we continue to focus on that. Focused on financial responsibility. You're kind of throwing me off at that. And making sure we're using our resources wisely. And above all, I'm focused on listening to all the stakeholders, and I mean all of them, and that includes you. I'd like to end, and keeping an open mind and including all those concerns. I'd like to end with a saying from Mother Teresa. She said that we can do no great thing, only small things with great love. And I'm asking for a small thing in your support tonight.
Hello, thank you, Fidalgo Democrats. My name is Michael McClintock. I'll go back a little further. I enlisted in the United States Navy Reserves in 1984. Graduated from Sacramento State, which we refer to as the University of Washington of California. I went off to fly for the Navy for 27 years. That took me to 11 different locations during that time. Met my wife in San Diego, currently known as the Admiral, and still the Admiral. After my last job at the University of Idaho, my wife and I were looking for a place to retire, knowing that my daughter was going to start her freshman year. And Anacortes was the place that we settled on, based upon what we'd seen across the entire United States and all the places we've lived. So We chose Anacortes because of the schools, the hospital, the community, and the people. And I'll throw a quick one out there. Does anybody know where Elsie May is today? You know why you know? Because these are the people of Anacortes who care what go on in our community. Anacortes is a gem. It's not like every other place in the United States. So my kids went off to college. My daughter just graduated. For the last 6 years, I really thought they'd be coming home every weekend, and they didn't. I went to work in the volunteerism world. I joined Rotary, VFW, American Legion, Project Healing Waters. I'm on the University of Idaho Military and Veterans Committee, which we meet twice a year. So public service is something that I've become very interested in over the last 2 years. I want to be part of a team. I want to be value added. I'm running for Port Commissioner, position 1, and I'm hoping for your vote. Thank you.
Well, that was a resoundingly good beginning. Is my microphone on?
No, I think it's.
That wasn't so good. Is it on now? Okay, what am I doing wrong?
Is it on?
You know, it's that funny little word says on. Okay, but really exceptionally good job, you guys, because I think that everybody heard every word you said. Okay, well, the next question, you're going to have 2 minutes each to answer. And we're going to start with Terry, followed by Michael, and then Mary. As a Port Commissioner, you will be dealing with city, county, state, and federal agencies, as well as fellow Port Commissioners. I'd like you to talk about what you see as your role as a Port Commissioner and describe your leadership style in working with all those various people, agencies, conflicts, and controversies.
Well, that's almost 2 questions. The role of the Port Commissioner is one who sets the goals. The operation belongs to the executive director and the staff. In other words, if I have an aircraft carrier, I'm going to I'd be like the Admiral saying, hey, this is the way that you're going to go, and this is the mission, this is what we're going to try to accomplish. And then hand it over to the skipper of the ship, which would be the executive director at the Port Commission to carry out that mission. So we're looking at it to figure out where we're going to go, and the way to do that, and the only way I can see to do that is to work collaboratively as partners and bringing in all the stakeholders. If everyone's concerns and concerns and input isn't part of that decision-making process, it's not going to be a very good process. Also, it has to be aligned with the mission. And if it's not aligned with the mission, then you get what I call mission creep, in which then what happens is you're wasting resources. So I've been a very collaborative leader. I've always been one that wanted to hear everybody's inputs. If you were part of my chief's mess, you would know that. Most of you probably don't even know what chief's mess is. But anyway, I've worked a lot with other senior enlisted leaders to make sure we got the mission done. And the only way to do that is to work together as a partnership and care more about their success than my own.
As I best understand it, I'll go back to what is a port. A port is a municipal corporation established to promote economic development and management infrastructure while supporting trade, industry, and transportation. The skill sets that I learned in the Navy, I believe, transition quite well over to the Port Commissioner position. The Port Commissioners have a set of values. I can't remember exactly what document it is, but I do remember the values that the Port Commissioners operate by. And they were public service, vision, leadership, respect, and teamwork. And I can most certainly get on board with those attributes and qualities.
Well, serving on the MAC for the last 10 years, I've worked a lot with the commissioners, and I see what their job is and what their mission is, and that is to set policies. It is to set priorities, and that's one thing I will collaborate with them to do. On a daily basis, I work between customers and underwriters, and I don't know if you guys know what underwriters are like, but they've got to be a lot easier I think being with commissioners is a lot easier than underwriters, and I think we'll get along and we'll try to make some really good things happen for the next 50 years in the port.
Michael, you're gonna start off.
Yeah, here.
Oh, yeah.
How about now? No. Yeah, no, thank you. All right, I'll just use my mommy voice. I could do that too. Michael, you're gonna start off with this one, and candidates, you'll have 2 minutes to answer this. Would you please explain in some detail what you understand the mission of the board to be, and what is your vision, and how would you promote it should you get elected to this next term?
We can't hear you, Shay.
Oh, well, I can't, I'm sorry.
There you go.
I'd like the candidates to explain in detail what you understand the mission of the port to be, and how you, if you are elected, would advance that mission during your upcoming term specifically.
So again, I'll go back to, it's a municipal corporation established to promote economic development and manage infrastructure, supporting trade, transportation, and industry. I believe the primary job is to ensure economic return and jobs, at least as to currently over 1,100 employees associated through the port. And my vision would be to grow that. So as I look at the expenses for 2025, which look to be about 23.2 million, no, the expenses were 24.2 and the revenues were 23.2 and the net income was 5.3. I would look to grow revenue by 10% every year, and I'd like to see the number of jobs increase by 6% every single year. That's what I would be focused on as a port commissioner.
Yeah, you kind of took my thunder away. Anyway, yes, I understand the mission to be about growth and commerce, as well as trade, tourism, and of course, family wage jobs. And I believe that that growth needs to continue with more family wage jobs, bringing in commerce that makes sense, makes sense to Anacortes and what Anacortes is about. Continuing the maritime type trades, I think, is critical, as well as increasing some of regular commercial jobs coming in as well. I also believe that it's important that there's also the environmental piece to it, that we continue with that mission, and that is part of their mission statement. And I think continuing that, as well as increasing our revenue, but I also believe there has to be balance. And I think that's where the public comes into play, and listening to every single person out there as we go, as we talk, and I believe in meeting with them, as well as like Mary, meeting with everybody at least once a month to find out what it is that they want, because you gotta have that public use too. That's what makes Anacortes so fabulous. Anyway, my vision is a balanced growth and listening and making sure everyone is at that table, all stakeholders' concerns are taken into consideration.
I also believe in the mission that Michael actually said. That's the true statement of this. My biggest thing that I want to do is help the port with some of my connections to get increased revenues for the Deepwater Port. We're not running at full capacity. We need to get up to that. We need to put some money away so that we can redo the north end of the marina. We need to borrow, bond. We have to have some cash in the bank though. So that's going to be a big focus for me, is to try to get those connections and help out wherever I can with my 40 years of experience in the marine world. And it goes all the way up to tugboat captains, to all kinds of different things. But putting the right people together so that John Dumas can do a great job and try to help staff and everybody do that. And then we set policies and we set different regulations and things. So I'll be real active in that. I've helped in that in the past, and I'm gonna continue to do that, even from the MAC standpoint. I've been doing that for 10 years. Thanks.
Okay. I'd like to ask a follow-up to each of you. We'll go in the same order. You all understand the mission of the port.
Can you hold the mic closer to?
Thank you. I need that reminder. You've all understood the mission of the port, which is to grow. And that's a lovely wish. Can we get a little more specific? What thoughts have you put into it? How will you grow them? Where will the jobs come from? Perhaps give us examples of where jobs have come from in the past that you would replicate. But I'm going to dig a little bit here. I'm going to push you for more than just a wish list. What thoughts have you about how you can actually accomplish this? Michael, do you want to start?
Not really, Shay, but I will. I would say education would be at the top of my list. Obviously, we have the local school here that offers 1- and 2-year certifications. I was gonna say videos that promote the port and the Port of Anacortes. However, when I went looking today, there's all kinds of great videos on the Port of Anacortes, so I was pretty surprised by that. But technology connections, and the last one I'll add from the military side, and I call this poaching, we go through lessons learned in the military, so we try not to make mistakes that others have made. But when I say lessons learned, are there other ports that are doing something different than what the Port of Anacortes does that would be advantageous to the Port of Anacortes? So I do think that would be something worth researching.
Yeah, one of the areas I know and I feel needs improvement, and I know there's plans for it, and we need to continue to support those plans, is for TDOT. A lot of folks use that, and that brings a lot of income with our fishermen as well as the Swinomish tribes. I see once they improve it, we can bring in even more trade and commerce coming into that dock. And like Mary said, I also agree, the marine terminals, they have projects listed out for that to improve those too, because that's where a lot of commerce is going to come in as well. And those jobs are well-paying jobs. Let me tell you, you're looking at, what is that, like $70,000 to $80,000 to $90,000 a year. They actually have $53 million that they actually pay out in wages. So that's not chump change. And then continue bringing in jobs like we brought in with there at the terminal. I know that's kind of a touchy subject there, but I think that was the Pacific Sound Rope. Anyway, they have entry-level jobs. That's for kids just getting out of high school and still trying to figure out what they want to do. They start at $20 an hour. That's not bad. I really would like to see us use some of our commercial property and use that to bring in maybe higher tech companies or companies that's more aligned with what we want, that is not going to cause us having to clean up after them, 50 years out, but companies that are going to provide more living wage jobs, because that's what we really need here in Anacortes to keep the growth, especially for our younger folks, people getting out of college and starting in the workplace. And that would be my wish list.
In addition to the Deepwater Port, we have additional pads of property that are available, but there's going to take a lot of input from you folks as to what should go there. And then we also have to look at the users of those areas to see if it is a conflict for them, because some of the ideas are a conflict. I can remember, for instance, talking to Corey Joyce, and I said, oh boy, the port offices would be great if they rebuilt the net sheds once they age out, and then we can put the port offices up there, and that'd be a great location. They could see the entrance, and he goes, you ever smelled the net sheds? And I went, yeah, you got a point there. So getting a lot of input to me is really important, because we don't need to be spending money on plans and all this other stuff if you guys don't approve of it. So we want to start with some public forums and start saying, what is it you guys want in the marina? How does it fit with the people in the marina? How do the other pads fit? What kind of businesses can we put on those pads? Do they build and we land lease like Anthony's did? Do we build and sell it to them? I mean, how are we gonna go about that? So we need to be real conscious of that for income.
Try turning the mic on and off. Yeah, there you go. There we go.
Thank you. So, let's see, I think Mary, now it's your turn to go first. Am I in order? Campaigns can tell us a lot about a candidate's intentions and how much effort they're putting into them. So my question now is going to be to each of you about your campaigns. Mary, in 2021, you ran for board commissioner. According to the PDC reports, you neither raised nor spent any money. Today, however, you have currently raised, according to the PDC, a little over $12,000 and spent a little over $3,500. Would you tell us about your campaign? What happened in 2021? What is different today? How are you running your campaign? How do we interpret all of your efforts at winning this position?
Okay, first of all, in the last election, I ran as a write-in, and I didn't file until, I think it was late August. So I wasn't going to run, I didn't plan on that. I was raising a grandson, and I was gonna stay totally focused on that, but a lot was going wrong at the port at the time, so I decided to jump in. I did get a fair amount of votes for being a write-in. This time around, I planned it. The day we could file, I started. I've put out 150 signs so far. I've been very active. I'm out talking to people, meeting with different groups, and trying to really kick it off. I've raised $12,950 so far, and I hope to raise a lot more. I've got a fundraiser at Seafarers on the 16th of July where I will be in a dunk tank. Who doesn't want to see that? So that's going to be fun for everybody to come out and watch, throw some balls at me, because if you can't take a hit or fall in the water, this is not your job. So that's what I'm going to do, and I'm going to continue to plug along through the primary and hopefully get to the general, and I'm taking it very seriously. This part of it is not my favorite part of it. I don't think it is for anybody, but it is part of it. And if you're going to work hard at the campaign, that means you'll work hard at the job. At least I know I will.
I've been in a lot of dunk tanks, and they're not that bad.
I'm gonna make the question specific to you now as well.
Oh,
You are
I got to answer that too.
You're a first-time candidate. It takes a huge amount of courage. And you currently raised a little over $3,300 and spent a little over $2,300. Both you and Mary have raised about a third of your funds have come from business, whereas 2/3 have come from individuals. As a first-time candidate and campaigner, tell us about your campaign.
Yeah, I sure will. I think most of mine came from personal.
Molina Health and.
Okay. Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, I gotta figure out how I'm gonna do that. Thank you, Cardi. Anyway, my campaign I have to admit, got off to a pretty slow start because I was called when I was in Spain and said, Terry, we really think you would be a good candidate to run for port commissioner. And this individual, I knew of them, I did not know them. And they said, wow, you really have a huge fan base. It's like, I'm thinking, who's my fan base? It's like, and I said, I need time to think this over. He says, well, you got 3 days, because then you have to file. It's like, oh, okay, well, let me, pray on a friend. And so I called one of my friends that I know if they're going to give me something to really think about and something, maybe not so favorable, that they would be a good person to ask, as well as somebody who is very positive. And what I got was, I think you would be great at the job. And then when I called the positive, she goes, can I be your campaign manager? And so I thought, okay. And it got off to a slow start because my campaign manager was gone at that time as well. And I had to file in Italy. That was trial and tribulations, but I got it done. And so I've been going out, talking to as many people as I can, reaching out the best I can, and just the hardest part actually was getting a bank account and then getting the flyers and the signs, and everyone kept saying, "Where are your signs? They're coming, they're coming." So it's been really a challenge, and I'm surprised at how much work is in doing a campaign. And there's times I'm thinking, oh wow, what did I get myself into? So.
Michael, your turn on the hot seat here. You are also a first-time candidate, and I don't mean my next statement to be a criticism, it is an objective description. You have thus far raised no money and spent no money. So, tell us about your...
I have in fact raised no money, and I've spent no money. I filed on May the 5th. I had already set up 9 to 12 months ago to head up to Montana, where I was working with veterans, many with PTSD, doing a project called Project Healing Waters. So I hosted breakfasts and I had veterans come out. That had already been set up 9 months ago. Came back on June the 29th. So as you've indicated, I'm at goose eggs, but I am going to go with the shock and awe plan commencing tomorrow, actually this evening. I did want to make a plug for Terry, because as I pulled into my parking lot at 4914 Kingsway, Terry was classy and kind and professional and walked up the driveway and introduced herself to me. And I thought that was a very bold, classy move, and I genuinely appreciated it. So look, I'm running against 2 very gifted opponents, and I'm going to ratchet it up.
Terry, I think you're going to start us off with the next question. And I think a minute is probably going to be sufficient for this one. You're a talker, right? You can have 2 minutes. Tell us what relationships, if any, you have with the port or port-related businesses. Do you have any conflicts of interest? And if you do, how will you deal with them if you should win this election?
Okay, so there's a saying that I always like, is I have no dog in the fight. So there's no conflict of interest. My interest is in just serving this community, and I felt that my skill sets and my experience, as well as my education, makes me a very strong and good candidate. The only really other folks that I know some fishermen, and I talk to them, and they're very interesting, and and I do understand operations. I understand how businesses work. Executive MBA, I'm very passionate about business and supporting businesses. So that's the only relationship I really have to the port, except for meeting Brett, who was a class act, and then John Dumas, who is just amazing and had done amazing things for the port as the operations director. So I'm very excited about working with him and the other port commissioners. So thank you.
Current relationships, I believe I have no conflict of interest with anybody currently serving in the port. I will say probably 3 years ago I did author a letter and send it in, my one and only letter to the editor about the port shed and what I felt it meant to the community. So that would be my one single aspect of dealing with the port and the port commissioners, whether they reviewed that letter or not. I will also add that in the 2016 comprehensive plan that was signed by the mayor and the council people, they had value number 3 on page 9 listed as pursue economic vitality. And I believe it's going to require that the board reach across to city council and establish and foster a very, very strong relationship.
I don't see any conflict of interest. I've worked with the port and the Anacortes Marine Trades, the NMTA, all of those organizations for over a decade, if not my whole career. So I've been to so many port meetings, retreats, the MAC meetings, the Marine Trades meetings. I mean, this is my life. It's what I do all the time. So I think that the fact that I know them all already, I know a lot of the members, I know all the marine trade businesses, all the people in the MAC, I think it'll be really a piece of cake for me. It's right in my wheelhouse.
Vanna White has just announced that she'll be passing out cards. So, pardon? Thank you. Feel free to keep reminding me. Anyway, please, if you do have a question, feel free to write it down and we'll pass it over and be incorporating it into all of our other questions. Okay, I think that at this point, have I lost my order? Is Michael up first?
I don't think so, Shay.
Okay. Okay, then I'm going to make it Mary. You've all mentioned that the mission of the board is to grow and to do that with jobs. And we've heard some specificity, but I'm not sure I've heard too much. Can you give us some examples of how the court has been successful? What has the court done right? How has it been an economic developer and driver for our community? Mary, you want?
A lot of it is our port properties and the things we do at the marine terminal. Once we start building out, when we hear from you what you want, that is going to bring jobs. If we bring in businesses and we do land leases, that brings in jobs. There's a lot of different things the port can do like that. And we still have property left and we still have a terminal that we can bring more to. So those are going to be the focuses. The marina typically is full, so we don't have a lot of issues. We have like 16,000 boater nights in the summer, or year-round, but it's mostly the summer. So we have a lot of visitors. We're not in a crisis for filling the marina for sure. So that spot's pretty good. We sell a lot of fuel, and as long as we keep those prices down, those people are going to be stopping in here. It's great they can walk to West Marine, Safeway. I mean, it's a great location for boaters. So we want to keep that coming. We want to keep the boat show coming in so that we have those dollars coming in. So a lot of what we're doing is working, and a lot of what we can do in the future will be similar to that, as with our tenants and our port.
One of the things that I was really impressed with were two things. I thought, even though it wasn't a popular move, and I know communication went out, I don't know how well it went out, but I know that bringing in business to the marine terminal there, especially when they brought in that, and they showed that, and they sold the terminal building, or leased the terminal building to the rope company. I thought that was smart. I know it was hard for the community, and maybe we could show a little bit more leadership in helping everyone kind of figure out what to do next. And I think they've done that, or the city's done that with planning for an actual center, community type center to come in and fill that need. The other smart thing I thought that they've done as far as bringing in business and bringing commerce into the area that had very little impact and very little, probably couldn't have cost it that much, was that RV park. Somebody emailed me and said, well, what do you think about the RV park? I thought I really like it. I thought it was smart. It's a very smart decision. Very low cost, very low maintenance, and it brings in and it generates a lot of revenue percentage-wise. So I think the more we can look at all the various things that bring in revenue, such as tourism, as well as commercial use in our lands for commercial use, is really important.
I'll go back to 2008 in the comprehensive plan on page 6. It said port properties hosted 650 employees. Tied to industry and repair. So that was 650 employees back in 2008. And if you look at it today, In 2025, it's 1,100 employees. So I'm just gonna say something's going right. Something is very much going right, and that's why I want to be a part of this Port Commission team. Would I like to see the jobs grow? Yes, exactly what I said previously is at a rate of 6% per year. I think tourism is coming, technology is improving. We want to reach out to the people that we want to come into Anacortes and do business in Anacortes. Since 2008, we spent $65 million in environmental cleanup. I think that makes the port very attractive to people out there. So that's my position on that.
Terry, we'll start the next question with you. We've been hearing from the three of you quite a bit about business interests, about growing jobs, about bringing in more revenue. There's also the issue of recreational boating and the enjoyment that locals get from using the facilities, which don't necessarily bring in revenue. We have several community organizations like the Old Anacortes Rowing and Sailing Society and the Anacortes Waterfront Alliance, which is now known as Anacortes Community Boating. We have hundreds of families. We have the Anacortes High School sailing team dependent on the dinghy docks. So we have a lot of activities related to recreational boating and local enjoyment for locals. Would you talk about how you, as a port commissioner, would balance the tension between those two things?
I believe that public use is also part of that mission statement, and it needs to be. You have to have that balance, and I would look to making sure we support efforts such as the planning that's for the future. They're looking at putting in a park area. I think we need to continue that, and we also need to continue to support all the boaters and all the recreational use that is out there as well. And I think if we lose sight of that, then Anacortes loses what the charm and what is really great about this place. Like I said, it means listening to everyone's concerns and making sure that every stakeholder, and that includes the public, is part of those decisions when we're looking at properties, when we're looking at use of our properties and of the marina there. And yeah, I don't know how else to say it any better, but I strongly believe we need to make sure that the port is public.
So if I have it right, recreational boating, there's 18,000 boat nights, 70 jobs, and $3.5 million worth of payment. I am committed to the small activities. My daughter in her freshman year started through the Waterfront Alliance with the sailing team for Anacortes High School. I've been watching racing for 8 years. She races for the University of Washington. After 8 years, I still cannot actually figure out what she's doing out there, but she says to me, "Dad, I'm chasing fast water." So there is a soft spot in my heart for Oars belongs in Anacortes. The Waterfront Alliance, I don't know what the new name is now, belongs at the port in Anacortes. I was blown away in her freshman year when the kids came in to get their first briefing, and the coach made it known to all parents that every child, regardless of financial status, would be brought onto the sailing team, that they had enough gear, components, and anything needed for any student to be on that team. And I thought that made a big statement about what the town of Anacortes was.
I've been a big part of helping with oars and the ABC as it is, or ACB as it is now. Our marine trades does give away about $40,000 a year, and right away when AWA came to us, before it was the ACB, I was the first one to raise my hand because everybody was saying something about giving them $3,500, and I said, how about if we just give them 10 grand? So that was our first adventure. We've supplied them with, I think, 5 or 6 sailboats now, a chase boat, and we'll continue to support them. The kids have to have something to do in this town. They lost their bowling alley. Who knows what will happen with the theater. And this is a boating community. We have to keep those kids boating, because if they're anything like me, they're gonna get addicted, And then they're gonna ask their dad someday before he dies, why didn't you just get me addicted to drugs? It would be cheaper and less addictive. And he spent the last part of his life going with me, and I was of course paying all the bills then. So, but it is an addiction. It's a lovely sport for families, and that's how things start, is in the small boats. Nobody gets a big boat first. I was huge on helping fight the inequity on rate increases in our marina. We're pricing people out that live here. There's people that live here that can't afford to be in our marina, so they've moved to LaConner, they've moved to Schual-Berke. It isn't right. So we've taken, and it was tiered at 3%, 5%, and 7% for 3 years in a row. Happened to be on the bigger docks, 6% the first year, then for 3 years in a row it was 7%. Yes, there's a lot of rich people from out of town that can afford this, and they will come if we get kicked out. If we get priced up, they will still come here. So it'll always be full, but is that the direction we want to go? It isn't the direction I want to go. It used to be, when I first moved into the marina, if you had a house here, you didn't have to pay the excise tax on your mortgage. So, you know, I don't know if we can bring that back, but my time is up.
Take one more question before we break for a few minutes. And this one, I think you can take as much time, well, let's say up to 5 minutes as you like, because I think it's a really tough question. The North Basin redevelopment plan. Who knows what that is? Raise your hand if you know what that is. Ooh, wow, that's more people than I expected. But many of us don't know what it is, and it's a very complicated situation. In some summary, I would say that space is limited, resources are limited, there's competition between small marine business, yachts, recreational boaters, all of the uses that we have in this town. I'd like you each to describe your vision for what you'd like to see the North Basin redeveloped as and how you would accommodate all of those needs. That is a very complicated question. And I hope that you've each given it some thought, because it's a critical one, I think, in these coming years. I think that the first one at bat for this one is Michael.
So if I understand right, the North Basin over the next 10 to 15 years, it's supposed to cost $50 to $80 million in order to accomplish what the desired effect is supposed to be. I can't give you a plan right off the top of my head. What I can say is I've always been fascinated by the publications that are out, starting with the 2008 Comprehensive Plan. When you look at the list of the people who contributed to that plan, it's well over 100 to 150 people within the community that are listed by name who contributed to that plan. So this is where I would just invoke the word synergy and solicit the community at large, establish synergy, and get the entire community's ideas and weigh-ins on how to resolve that big bogey that's coming at us over the next 10 to 15 years in the North Basin. I know grant money, last article I saw on that on the 25th of, February of 2025 was EPA grant money had been frozen. I think grant money is gonna be a challenge from this point forward. So gotta figure out workarounds on some of the grant money, I think. But I don't have a solid solution at this point, Shay, but I'm willing to dig deeper to come up with some better ideas.
I agree, and we do need to make sure some of those projects that they're looking out at, especially, you know, making sure we're maintaining, you know, in through J docks and stuff, that's very important, as well as some of the plans they're looking at to increase parking, as well as, I believe that's also some of the area that they were looking at, some public use as well as commercial use. All that's important, and you're right, the cleanup, you know, those grants that are coming in are very important, and the only way I think to get around that, or not even around it, I guess to get through it, is to also look at partnering with other ports, with the state, city, county. You know, find out what they're doing, how they're getting past these grants, what are some ideas out there, and again, listening to the public, because You know, I know I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer, and one of you may have a really outstanding idea and something that maybe we've never thought of. So I think that's so important that we do listen, like Mike said, to everybody and see what your thoughts are. How would we best serve this community with that property and fix that issue? And yeah, it's gonna cost money, and we gotta figure out what's the smartest way to go about that and use our funds when we're doing that, as well as what are some ways that we can reach out and partner with folks to maybe get other grants, future grants coming in to help with some of that development.
I have a brain that is a gift and a curse at the same time. I've spent a lot of time thinking about this. I don't think grants are going to be a big issue for us because they're federal grants. The state is our issue because it's so hard to do anything on the water. Anything to do with the EPA or anything to do with a marina, all that is very restrictive. We have a great piece of property. Our marina is 26 acres. Bud Lemieux at the end of 34th Street owns 33 acres of water. He's aging out, he wants to sell it. So there's been a lot of talk, there's been a couple people looking at it. I'm hoping that that will come to fruition because it would be a great spot for some of the smaller boats if they want to go there. It's more sheltered, it's protected, it's a really good location. It's been a cleanup site, so we have to see what all we can do there. Possibly a dry stack could go there where it also stores the trailer, so all you have to do is park a car. And Bud is really passionate about it being marine. He doesn't want to just sell it to get the money and turn it into condos. He wants it to be marine. So, you know, whether that happens or not, but the timing right now that we have to replace those docks and that property is available is really a good thing if we can make it work. And possibly down the road, the port can purchase it if somebody else developed it. And one thing you have to understand about the port developing anything, they have to pay prevailing wage, which is 30% above a regular contractor. So if somebody else were to get that property and then sell it to the port or lease it to the port, there's so many options we could do with that property, and now is the time to maybe try to work through that and see if there are investors that are willing to do it. If that does not occur, then we still have all of the small boats, and a lot of people here have small boats, and I know I've been through, you know, a 19, a 28, a 40, a 52, and now a 43, and I'll go back down because that's what happens as we age. We don't need the bigger boats. So I want everybody in Anacortes to have a place for their boat, you know, and it doesn't have to be in their yard, but sometimes we don't have enough space, and that's where they are. So we do have dry storage, and that's good too. But I want everybody to look at that marina, that half empty, and what do we want to do with it? You know, because that's what happened on the south end. I drove up, I used to drive 2.5 hours every weekend to come here for 25 years. I showed up and the docks were gone, and I was just like, wow, look at that. It's just this big open space. So to me, that's like a canvas. So it is up to us what we put there. It's up to you guys. It's up to everybody in town. What do you want there? So we have long-term tenants. You can't push them out. Can't just say, oh, we want to do something completely different. You guys, too bad. So there's going to be a lot of meetings, and we'll get through it. But what we build will be here for another 50 years. So when I moved into this marina, those docks were a year old. So I'm excited to see what the next phase is, and I look forward to it.
All right, well, it's 8 o'clock. Why doesn't everybody stretch their legs? We'll take a 10-minute break, cookies and coffee at the back, and then we'll resume with some more questions. Can't leave.
credit nor responsibility for what I'm about to ask.
And now if you can't hear me, I'm sorry. All right, we're going to start with Mary. Mary, the airport is port property. I remember years ago, the airport wasn't making income or very little for the port. Has that changed? And how does the airport fit into the big picture?
The airport's very important to us. If you picture what happens if we have a major earthquake and we have no bridges. You picture a catastrophe where we need air services coming in. We have to have our airport. It's very important. It doesn't make a lot of money, no. We'll be looking at that and seeing. I know that I've had a number of people, because a lot of people that own big boats that I insure have airplanes. And they've asked, why can't we have airplane hangars with either an apartment or an office above it? I think it's a great idea. I've seen it a lot of places. And I was talking to Bill Wooding about it yesterday, and he's got hangars up there. And he said things are going pretty well at the airport. And he was trying to wrap his head as a developing person around how and where we could add to it. We do have some vacant space. So we have to again look at, do we want to land lease and let somebody else build so we don't pay for infrastructure and do long-term leases? Or do we want to build something? Or do we want to bring in another business? Because we can do that. We've got a number of businesses up there that are successful, and that's really good. So keeping the airport is very important.
Like Mary, I also agree with that. In fact, going door to door, I've talked to a few folks, and of course, there's some folks, especially in Skyline, that are like, oh my gosh, they're coming right in on us, and I understand that because I live right there, and they come over me, and yet I know it is critical and it is important to be there. One of the interesting comments I got from one of my neighbors when I was going to door was, well, I've been on the waiting list 4 years to get hangar space. So I do agree that hangar space is something that we can look at and would generate more revenue for the airport. And I will tell you, having worked in aviation for most of my naval career, I'm not certain that putting a business or apartments above a hangar might not be a viable thing, but it's nice to look and keep open-minded about what are some of the possibilities, which I think we need to do, and we do have space up there to make some sound decisions and sound investments for our community.
I think they do 95,000 gallons worth of fuel per year, and that's been trending upwards since inception. It's ranked as one of the 12th busiest small airports in the state of Washington. They're FAA approved. I will say it is critical to keep the airport, but I do wonder about the $7.8 million for the stormwater removal project up there, and I wish I had got into that line of business before I got into volunteerism. And then, of course, the Rockwell industry that's going on up there, I need to do more research on that, but I don't know what fruits that might pay down the road and into the future. But yes, I do believe it's important to keep that airport infrastructure tied to the port and to the community.
Terry, you're going to start us off with the next question. You have, each of the candidates has 2 minutes for this. I'd like you to name some of the revenue sources for the port, and I'd like you to discuss the challenges, if you see any coming up, in light of the big beautiful bill and other federal and state tax and policy changes. Are you aware of any impacts of recent legislation on our port, and how will you deal with it?
Boy, that is a jam-packed. Yes, I know there is revenue, extensive revenue, almost I think $100 million that come in through that marine terminal and all that's generated there from Dakota Creek and the seafood processing plants there, as well as like Mike had mentioned, there's 18,000 nights as far as in the Marine Basin there, as far as with the area there on the various docks and whatnot that are being used. And I believe that generates almost $13 million a year, as well as $14 million on TDOC, using that with fishery and the Swinomish tribe. So yes, a lot of revenue is brought through the port and brought into the city, as well as through the port district, or our money through the port, but I mean also money that goes in through commerce that's generated through the port. Yes, I do believe we're going to be looking at fiscal concerns. I'm very concerned about it. And one of them, like Mike had mentioned, is the EPA grant, because last I've heard when I was reading newspapers and whatnot, I see that a lot of funding is being cut from the EPA, and that's really important money that was coming in to help, one, clean up the port, as well as we were going to use it to help improve some of TDOC. So that's what I believe. I hope I got that right. I went on that tour with Bonnie Bowers, and she helped me better understand some of what they were looking at, as well as understanding a little bit about the port. And then also talking with other port commissioners, that I have 3 that currently endorse me. And I've been picking their brain and trying to get as much information as I can, so I could be a better board member should I get elected to this position. So for the state taxes, oh, sorry.
Much like Terry, what she was saying is the marine terminal, $100 million in commerce per year, $53 million in wages. The TDOC generates $14 million, and the marina generates $12 million into our economy each and every year. So as I look at the marina, the properties, the airport, and the marine terminal, to me, and I'm a social scientist by trade, that's what I majored in, not an economy major, but all 4 of those, the marina, the properties, the airport, and the marine terminal, all look like growth industries to me, where there's opportunities to be made more to bring into Anacortes economy. I think our tax rate is 16 cents on $1,000 per assessed value, which works out to about $65 to $200 per taxpayer in Anacortes each and every year. Please note, I'm a fiscal conservative, not interested in seeing any taxes ever get raised, but that's what they currently tax us at, and they can take that by law to 45 cents on the 1,000, currently at 16 cents. So, yeah, lots of work to be done there.
I see us picking really strong tenants with lots of, some of the ones we picked, like Cortland Rope and Dakota Creek, and some of those major ones. Dakota Creek having a 50-year anniversary this year. They're really good choices. We need to continue to make those good choices. I'm more worried about the state taxing than I am the federal taxing and what the feds are doing, because our state, when I went through that whole tax thing that just passed, starting July 1st, there's a lot of heavy taxes there that are gonna hit, especially fuel. When you start looking at all the boats out here, it's a lot of fuel they buy. And if it's not affordable, they're gonna stop going as far. So that's happened in the past. So the fuel rates, we can always tell what boats are doing by the fuel rates. So, you know, we're adding a lot of tax burden to everybody's household in this state. So as we continue to do that, then we do hit things like recreation, and that's a big deal. So I'm more worried about that. I know that Florida, they're really big into building marinas like crazy. They bring in all the tax revenue from it, the sales tax from the boat sales, they bring in all this money from it. So I wish we were more aligned with that, because we have a lot of boats sitting on dirt, and boats don't belong on dirt, they belong in the water. So until we get some of that sorted out, it's gonna be an issue. So that's my take on the tax portion of it. But I think good solid companies like Cortland Rope, when we went through, in Dakota Creek, when we went through COVID, those businesses didn't stop a lick, they just kept right on going. And that's what we need.
So those were informative answers from all three of you, and I thank you for it, but I don't know that you answered my question. I really am trying to see how much you know about revenue sources for the port. We know, of course, that tenants pay rent, and we know that government taxes come into play, but I didn't hear a lot of specificity, so I'm just going to point out that I don't feel like I got a great answer there. Michael said one thing that I'd like to ask the others in follow-up. When would you raise taxes on the residents of this city? For what purpose? And do you know how much the average homeowner currently pays for port taxes? Michael kind of gave us half an answer. Why don't you finish your answer, Michael, if you want to add anything to it?
Well, 16 cents on $1,000 per assessed value, which I think the running average is each taxpayer pays somewhere between $65 to $200 per year. That's the median. I'm certain there's some higher. I'm certain there's some lower. They can tax up to a rate that's already approved if they wanted to go that route, up to a rate of 45 cents per thousand, but currently it resides at 16 cents per thousand of assessed value on your property. Did I answer that, Shay?
I'm gonna give the other two a chance to answer, and then I'll give you the right answer.
Honestly, I really don't know. And when I was looking at the budget, I thought, oh, well, we don't bring in a lot, or the port doesn't bring in a lot of money in taxes. That's not where the majority of their revenue is done in there. Anyway, the taxes can only be used on procuring and improving property, or going out generating jobs and generating commerce and trade. Most of the operating costs of the port, operation and the management, that money comes from revenue that they actually make, which is from, like Mary had alluded to the leasing of properties, and as well as the rentals that come in and out of the marina there. Marina generates a great deal of revenue. And then, oh yeah, you know, it's a good source of revenue too, that RV park, and I really do like it. Anyway, yeah, that's how I understand it.
I know she likes the RV park. It is beautiful. I would not have been for it. We were charging $25 a night with no infrastructure, no maintenance. We have a depleting north end that needs to be replaced. I wouldn't have built the shiny new dime. It was $6 million. We get $50 a night in the winter, $65 in the summer. There's only 25 spots. So it is beautiful. It does enhance the looks of the marina, but I'm more about nuts and bolts, and I would have rather seen that money set aside for fixing the marina. What was my other part of that? What was the question again? So just so I can Oh, I am not a fan of raising taxes at all. That's almost like me going back to my insurance customers and saying, I haven't really run my agency right, so I need more money from you. I think that it needs to be sustained by itself. It needs to run properly. It needs to be, the money that goes out needs to be spent wisely. And we don't have to have a bunch of shiny new dimes. We are an island. There's only so much space. There's only so much we can do. And I hear people say, Everett is beautiful. It's got all these restaurants and all this stuff. Well, they have all those acres of land that we don't have. So we have to be real careful what we put there, because it's going to be there for a long, long time. So that's where your input is going to be a big deal, is looking at what are we going to build? What are we going to build in the marina? You know, people say an event center. Well, a lot of people will tell you that build and are in real estate, those are a big loser. And if COVID comes, it sits vacant. Who pays for it? And it takes up parking spaces for tenants. There's just a lot of issues with it. And then, like I said, when the port builds, it's prevailing wage, 30% more than somebody else. And then we also are competing with businesses that are already here. That's not our mission statement. We're supposed to be helping local businesses. We're not supposed to be in competition with them. So there's a lot to think about, and I'm really hoping the public gets involved. And before we draw plans and get architects and all that involved, because we spent $800,000 on the first event center that went nowhere. I don't want to see that happen anymore. And it's happened on other projects, and now my time is up.
Okay, we'll share a couple of facts. The average homeowner in Anacortes pays $100,
The average homeowner, the average homeowner pays $140 a year. And in case it wasn't made clear, it may have been, those monies cannot be used for operations. That's only to expand, to buy land, to get new infrastructure, to improve public access. Okay, the event center. Mary, you've given us some opinion there. We'll give you more time, but I think, Michael, it's your turn to start. Would you talk to us about your feelings about whether the port should be involved in an event center? Should it be cooperating with the city? How should this work?
Can I go back to the last one too, Shay? I think it's $1.8 million that gets generated in taxes per year that goes to the port. So that one just came to me in midair.
It's your time.
Okay. Is it part of the mission? Is it part of the port's mission to have an event center? No, it's not part of the mission. Do I think the port should play an active role in an event center? Absolutely, 100%. I'll say it over and over again. Over my first 8 years in the community, the number of events I attended down there brought the people of Anacortes together. I can remember coming out of COVID and sitting down for an Anacortes Schools Foundation event and talking to a lady who said, God, it's great to get out after a year and a half. I remember the Christmas villages that went up for ASF each year, and it went on for 2 weeks. The Arts Festival, Beer on the Pier. I miss Beer on the Pier down at the shed. I think it draws the community together, and I think this is an area where the port commissioners and city council need to reach across the aisle and sit down and together devise a plan to establish a new event center. I know the first look was $26 million to establish it. There's gotta be a way that it can get done. I know the port has land. I know they've, I don't know what kind of agreement they've come to, but I know they have started by reaching across the aisleway, and now it's time to move forward.
I can almost say ditto, because I too believe that it belongs there. As I've been going door to door, I hear a lot of people talk about how much they miss that terminal building, and like Mike said, it does bring people together, you know, as well as the wine festival, all these great activities that I look forward to every year, and people actually come to attend them. I mean, there's a lot of folks that come here to Anacortes to attend that, and part of our mission is tourism, if you look at the mission statement. So I think that is part of it, and bringing money into the city. I think it's critical that we work with the city on that, because all we can really do, part of our mission would be possibly leasing it to the city at a very extremely low rate, and you know, provide the property. The rest of it, it really would be placed, I believe, properly placed with the city. And I don't know why we can't partner with them to make that happen. And like Mike said, I totally support it. I think it's very important. It's the public part of what we do as the port.
This is where I completely differ. There is the Majestic, there is the casino, and there is MJB's property that are planning to build a 400-seat event center with a hotel and a restaurant. They will be taking the risk. They will be spending the money. They will pay a third less to build it. And if anything goes wrong, they've got the risk, not us. So we don't have to come back to you to pay for it. I love the fact that the city and the port are communicating, because over the years I've been around, there's times that wasn't happening. And I think it's really cool that that's happening. I love their collaboration. And I don't think it belongs in the marina. If you talk to the marina tenants, when you open up the doors, which is the plan, and there's a wedding every weekend, you're gonna hear it across the marina. So the tenants don't listen to their music, they don't get to sit and read a book, they're listening to a party all the time. At Seafarers, it's different because it's open to the mouth of the harbor. So we're on E-Dock, you sit on E-Dock. This time on 4th of July, because of the wind, we could hear the band. But a lot of times we really can't even hear it. It'll be quite different when it's in that enclosed space. And then like this weekend, tenants are driving 30 minutes around in a circle to find a spot. And they're paying a lot of money to be in that marina. But they don't have a place to park. So we have it open to everybody. So the farmer's market's going, good luck on a Saturday. You're gonna drive around. And it's not fair to the tenants. So between the noise and the parking, and then just the investment itself, it's not in the port's lane. We are not in the entertainment business. We are a port, and we should focus on that, in my opinion.
Mary, I'm gonna start you off on this one, and it's a, not my fault. Didn't say it was.
Okay. Mary, I'm gonna follow up on something you just said. Why doesn't the port permit parking? Is that not a good revenue source?
I'm glad somebody gets that. So on the MAC, this is another reason I ran. I've sat on the MAC for 10 years. There's certain things like gates at the marina. So I want them open during the day. You guys own that marina. You should be able to walk it. You should be able to go to it. And I want it open. But at night, we have had some issues. And it's safety and it's property. And those gates should close at night, and only the marina tenants should be allowed down there at night. Also with the restrooms, I've been talking about that for 6 months now. You know, the whole time I've been here, they've been open to the public. And it was fine till we had the homeless crisis, and then everything, you know, we spent a lot of money cleaning it up. It was a disaster. There were needles, all kinds of things I'm not gonna mention. But I think we're beyond that now. So the last couple meetings, I keep saying, hey, let's open them back up. I mean, let's face it, look at this room, how much gray hair is here. You know, our gaskets aren't getting any younger. And when you're walking around, you know, there's bad behavior comes from closing bathrooms, or accidents and embarrassments come from that. So there's a lot going on, and you guys own the marina, and the bathroom should be open. It should be open during the day, but we do need security because things do get stolen, and we've had graffiti on boats, and so yeah, there's a lot, you know, and we try, and then all of a sudden we don't hear back. They don't do anything about it. And it's frustrating, you know, that's why I want these monthly meetings, so we can talk back to you. If you have 5 commissioners together, they cannot talk back to you at a meeting. But 1 or 2 of us, we can talk to you, and we need to be engaging in that. And I know it can be a double-bladed sword, and we'll get attacked from time to time, but I think people understanding what we do, and we understand your needs, and we don't fight each other on it, we try to come up with good solutions, we're all gonna be fine.
Okay, well, last I looked, there was a plan to put in parking, and I thought that's why we were trying to reroute to connect our avenue. So when I looked at a CIP, I was looking at that. So, you know, a capital improvement plan, and I think that parking is important. And actually, I think that would be a good revenue source to go ahead and have permitted parking. But then I would also say that we need some public parking as well. So anyway, there's got to be enough parking to support the local community here as well as some tourism. So that's my position on the parking. Other than that, I don't know much more about that.
Shay, can I ask for context? The question is, why doesn't the port permit parking?
Or the question meaning, why doesn't the port create permits which are a revenue source for parking?
Oh, create?
Sorry, that wasn't clear.
Okay, yeah, because I was gonna say, I parked down there a lot, and I was wondering if I broke the law or something. Because Seafarers is a great place to have dinner when you look out over the water by yourself at 7 p.m. at night or right across from the yacht club, but,
Well, you are a hair splitter.
yeah. But now I do understand the question, and, so port permit parking, I really haven't put a lot of thought into it. I don't know that we should be charging money, but that is something I definitely would put in front of the community to get their feelings and opinions on permit parking. If it came down to it and that was how we needed to generate revenue in some capacity, maybe, but right now I'm not a super big fan of paying for parking down there, to be perfectly honest with you. Maybe next week my mind will change when I've done more research.
Well, I have to confess, candidates, that was a little bit of a trick question. Not really meaning to trap anyone, but I think to illustrate how, as candidates step up and learn things, and you're all really put on the spot here, you can't know everything, you learn as you go. Permitted parking, permitted parking is prohibited in public parking lots. And it has to do with, this is what I have been informed, it has to do with how the funding for the parking lot was created, and so it is prohibited. Okay, so much for that. But I didn't mean to trick anybody, I just think it's a really illustrative point. Okay, Terry, you are up next. Why should the port own all the properties that it does? Why not leave that to private business to own?
Can't hear you.
Okay, I'm going to say it again. Thanks for telling me. Why should the port own all the properties it does? Why not leave that to private businesses to own? And 2 minutes to you.
That's a good question. I personally believe one of the reasons why they should own the property is to make sure that we are allowing for commerce to grow and also supporting the industries around that commerce. We need properties because, like, we have the welders there, you have the rope makers there, I can see other industries, because the way economy works is when you have a certain industry, you get clusters around it, you want them close so they're not having to pay for warehousing and all that. So you have that property to promote and bring in under other industries that support your major industry within that area. That's why I assume that, I don't know why they bought it, I wasn't there when they made the decisions, but that's probably what I would look at. And those clusters are important. It's like Boeing, they have a lot of businesses around the airport there and around their complex there that supports the aircraft. Your window makers, your seat makers, your widgets and gadgets and all that. You've got to have that cluster, and you can't do it if you don't have the property to lease to them to support that. That's the best answer I can give you.
It is about commerce, and a lot of those businesses do match what the port's mission is and what they do. Cortland Rope's a great one. T. Bailey out on Marsh Point, thanks to John Dumas, who just got a 2-year contract to run their pipe. That is really good. Those companies will, in turn, bring a lot of jobs and money to this town. They already own them. But over the decades I've been around, they bought the Olson building for $2 million and sold it for $1. That was a bad decision. It just was, I'm sorry. So, and I tried to get them to come down to the opening of the Elks Lodge in Tacoma that McMinimans had. And I know them, and I could have put them right in front of them and said maybe that would be something, because it would still belong to the community, so the community could still go there. And it's the nicest view in town. So now it'll be low-income housing, and I'm all for low-income housing, but I don't think it should be on that high dollar of property. I think that should have remained for the public, for everybody to enjoy.
Why should they own the properties? I'll go back to what I talked about at the very beginning. Municipal corporation established to promote economic development and manage infrastructure while supporting trade, transportation, and industry. That's a charter mission for the Port of Anacortes. So acquiring property is part of their strategic policy from all of the documents that I've read. Acquiring property is part of the strategic policy. We currently have between 37 and 50 tenants. I can't isolate that down to a specific number, but that's the range I've seen. 4 opportunities to grow: marina, terminal, airport, and properties. I still think properties is a growth industry, and I think that's a great way to bring money into our economy.
Michael, you're gonna start us off with this next one.
Now, this is an odd question, came from the audience, so I'm not responsible. Are any of your supporters suing the port, or have they threatened to sue the port? I think that's a 30-second yes or no.
So far, I've laid out $0. I don't know what my list of supporters actually encompasses, so I'm just going to say no. None of my supporters. The answer is no.
All my supporters are mostly my neighbors, and I haven't heard of any of them telling me that they wanted to sue or have sued the port. So what I know of my supporters, which are, like I said, y'all, no, I don't believe so. I could be wrong because I don't know each and every one of them personally to know if they've in the past have sued. But I'm going under the assumption that you're like normal people probably would not have.
So that's an interesting question, because currently no, and I only know of one that did over the course of time, and that was Seattle Yachts, and they had a reason to. They actually had purchased the brokerage from Richard Wright, and when they purchased it, for the whole time I've been in the marina, since the marina building was built, when a yacht broker sold his business and he had slips in the marina, the property and the slips transferred to the new owner. That has happened through time, every time. And for some reason, with the sale of Seattle Yachts, the executive director decided not to do that, which created a 2.5-year issue. And then we went in as the Marine Trades, and we have resolved it. It's gone back to that, which it always should have done. But now there's a possibility there's a discrimination suit because they let everybody before and everybody after do it, and it wasn't right. So I'm not sure what the status of this is today, but that's the only issue I know of. I don't know of any others that are going on.
Thank you. Michael, I think it's your turn to start. The next question, 2 minutes for each of you. How do you intend to balance interests regarding economic growth with concerns about environmental protections and conservation? I can repeat that.
Could you repeat that, Shay?
How do you intend to balance interests regarding economic growth with concerns about environmental protections and conservation? Growth versus the environment.
So I'll say in my line of work, I was fortunate enough to have command of a squadron, and what I woke up to every single day was operational risk management. Every single day I climbed out of bed, it was don't let anything bad happen today. When I went to bed at night, it was don't let anything bad happen tomorrow. When we look at environmental protection, absolutely critical to protect our environment. There's not a trade-off. So I look at how we're moving forward and doing business with clean marine and the electrification that's going on down in the port. And we're looking for new ways to stay green, but we cannot afford to have an environmental mishap. We can't afford to take that risk on. In the Navy, that was one of my areas of expertise, was mitigating risk to an acceptable level. And I think that's what has to be done really almost each and every day, and I'm willing to bet the executive director does that each and every day.
I hear you on that. Yes, I believe there has to be a balance with the interest with economic growth. And I think we can have it if we keep within, if we keep aligned with our mission. And part of that mission was about protecting, I believe the way it's actually worded is ensuring the health of our port for future generations, supporting environmental goals. And I think if we're always making these decisions when we're bringing in commerce and when we're making these long-term decisions and goals as far as the port, we always have to keep that in our mind. And when we do that, I think we'll make the better decisions as to what companies come in here, what commerce we do, how we develop that land to make sure that in the next 50, 100 years, that they're not having to do the environmental cleanup that we're doing today. Now, our forefathers and mothers and folks out there, they didn't know that the paper mill and the canneries were going to cause so much pollution within our marina here in this whole area that we'd be cleaning up now 50, 100 years later. We have that knowledge now, and we can make those better decisions, and that has to be done when we're looking at our future.
Actually, I'm really proud of our port in this area. Even before I was on the MAC, and well, I guess it was part of the time during on the MAC, but between the MAC and the Chamber of Commerce, I went to a lot of ribbon cuttings for the class. There's been a lot of cleanups that have gone on, and they've done a really good job. And we are a certified clean marina, so we're going to keep that. We want to keep that. We also are a green terminal, so we're certified as a green terminal. We want to keep that because a lot of commerce wants that. They want to do business with people that are doing that. I think we've done a really good job, and it takes the staff and it takes a lot of professionals that understand this to do that, because there's a lot of tight regulations, and the port has done a very good job of staying with that. And they've got cleaned up properties, and I see that we're doing really good, and we're gonna be on the path to do that.
Okay, we only have a few minutes left, so we're gonna do a lightning round here. That means strict 30-second answers, and then you're getting cut off. And then you're each going to have 2 minutes to make any closing statements that you like. So I think next up is Mary. Mary, what does the working waterfront mean to you in 30 seconds or less?
The working waterfront means jobs. It means a lot of people that are generations, multiple generations living here that have worked on the waterfront. We have to keep that. We have to keep them happy, viable, and able to keep their jobs, support their families, and it is very important to this community.
What does the working waterfront mean to you?
It means the same as I think Mary said, jobs. It's got to be jobs. It's got to be living wages. It's got to be viable and productive. That's what a working port means to me.
Working waterfront to me, it enables me to live in the most beautiful place in the United States, Anacortes, Washington. Based on the jobs that are out there, based on the commerce that come in, it makes this place an absolute gem. It's going to be a growth industry. It's going to continue to be a growth industry.
Terry, what's your vision for the Secret Cove property?
That's really a good question. I know that they're doing a lot of infrastructure work around there, and one of them is so interesting that one of them's a pump out too, for especially for the tugs and some of the larger ships coming in, which is critical because they're pumping out there instead of in the sound. So it appears to be very industrial around there. I know that building is in bad repair, and I really don't know what the thoughts are of the port. But I would like to see something built up there supporting the marine industry.
Gonna go out on limits. I'm not time out yet, am I? Gonna go out on a limb, Shay, and ask, this isn't a second trick question, is it? As I look at the PowerPoint briefs and the descriptions for the Port of Anacortes, there's 9 environmental cleanup areas. Is Secret Cove one of those current areas that's shaded brown?
It's the restaurant.
It's the restaurant.
Yeah.
Could be.
No further comment.
I feel that it needs to stay a restaurant. We have one waterfront restaurant right now on an island. We had 2. If it doesn't sell and get like, you know, I know Anthony's has turned it down, Duke's has turned it down, there's other people looking at it. I thought the Elks maybe could get it, but if they don't, it's okay. Maybe we get investors and we call it the Anacortes Community Club. You pay dues, it's cheaper than going out somewhere else, and we keep it alive. And it's a great buffer to the neighborhood of Capstan. So if we start laying down a bunch of loud stuff, they're not gonna be happy. So we have to look at our neighbors.
Thank you for answering those wonderful questions so quickly. I'm going to give everybody now 2 minutes to make closing comments. Mary, you began, so I'm going to let you end. Michael, would you begin, and then we'll go to Terry and then Mary.
It's him first.
Closing comments. I'm gonna go with, I've been told I'm a pessimist by trade on occasion. My wife is the optimist. That's the direction I'd like to travel. What's going right? So we talked about transparency, and I gotta be honest, in everything that I could possibly read and digest on the Port of Anacortes, I found answers online. I felt comfortable enough to where if I didn't have the answer, I could call somebody who would give me an answer. There's a 5-year outlook financially that's already established by the port to the tune of $49 million, 19 million from grants, 9.2 from operation money, 9.5 million in tax money, and 10.5 in new financing. So the Port of Anacortes has already started down that right path. The pursuit of grants, the $63 million awarded that's currently in jeopardy from the EPA, from what I understand, that takes a lot of time, energy, and effort. If there was any questions, I wouldn't hesitate to pick up in the phone and ask. And finally, if you look at the Port of Anacortes and Google it and look at the reviews, it's 4.8. That's pretty darn good, isn't it? 4.8. So what is going right? I think they're going the right direction. I firmly believe that. I want to be a part of that team. I want to be a public servant. And I think it's probably one of the greatest ports in the state of Washington. I'd appreciate your vote, even though I've not put out any signs, taken out any ads, produced any shirts. Again, shock and awe, pondering.
Great. Okay. I'm just gonna let you know, this is me, Terry Carroll-Gillis. And I believe I have the strong leadership. I believe I have the education and all the skill sets to do a great job as port commissioner. I believe Mike does too, and probably so does Mary. I know that my goal is to be very collaborative and work well with the other commissioners. I think that's very important. It's vital that we have a board that is just focused on the success of the port, as well as the support staff. I think it's vital that we get in and I'm very excited about strategic planning, and I think that's a vital part of it too, as we look ahead as they're celebrating the 100-year anniversary. And I believe in the mission. Like Mike, I think the port has done a really good job. And it's so easy to sit here and armchair quarterback the past commissioners, and I don't think that gets us anywhere. I think what we need to do is continue to focus on the mission and listen to you, the constituents, as well as all the other partners involved, the city, the businesses, and the tourist industry. Listen to everybody and hear what their concerns and ideas are, and bring that to the table. And I'm out there to listen to you all, and I've been listening to you, and I've heard a lot of great, interesting things about people who want growth and people who don't want growth. And all these things have to be taken into consideration. And that's me. I'm ready to report.
Thank you, Shay, for being our moderator. As you can tell, all three of us have accomplished careers. I believe people do the best they can with the tools they have at the time. The time is now for our port to make big decisions, to take strides, to take us forward for the next 50 years. The time is also right for me to invest my time in the port. I have the right tools, my decades of experience in the marine industry along with serving to it. I am the candidate that will start out on day one with real port experience and will need far less time to get up to speed. I will apply my knowledge, leadership skills, connections, and relationships to help our port. I have already, while serving our port, helped with resolving the inequity in the mortgage rates, helped to resolve issues between the port and the yacht broker segment in the marina, and just recently helped with many others in getting the senators to walk away from the $500,000 boat luxury tax. This was tried in 1991 and it was repealed in 93. We lost 49 boat builders during that time, and all the B&O tax that was generated and the sales tax. It was a net loss. Recently, the MAC has asked for gates in the marina that would only be closed at night. I'm hoping to get that achieved. I'm hoping to get the bathrooms back open. I'm hoping that we can move together as a group and maybe get some things done that have not been done. I humbly ask for your vote and hope that you know my door will always be open. I have a wonderful husband that supports me, and I married him 3 years ago at Seafarers Park. I love that park, and I have to tell you, a lot of people ask me why I'm getting married at that age 3 years ago. Well, first of all, I found a great guy, but second of all, at our age, till death do you part is not that big a commitment. If you believe in me, please donate, grab a sign on your way out, and I look forward to being your port commissioner.
Okay, well, I hope that we've accomplished our goal. I hope you all have gotten to know a little bit more about your candidates for Port Commission, their positions, and they are going to get to know you as well. I'm going to turn this back to Barbara Cooper, our chair, and thank you very much for your very courteous and civil participation in this event.
Thank you. I want to thank everybody for coming. It was a wonderful turnout. I hope you learned a bunch about the different port candidates, and I want to especially thank Shay for being the moderator. She did an amazingly great job. Thank you. So if the other thing before everybody runs out the door, if you could help us stack the chairs, that would be great. And I want to thank